Artificial intelligence is reshaping the 21st century, but its portrayal in film often reflects deeper fears about control, intimacy, and the boundaries of humanity. This video essay will explore how AI has been portrayed as a monster in three science fiction films: 2001: A Space Odyssey from 1968, Her from 2013, and Megan from 2022. These films span over 50 years, and each of the films offer a unique portrayal of how their respective AI characters are monstrous. By comparing these depictions, we can better understand how AI monstrosity has shifted through time in response to cultural anxieties and technological change. In traditional monster theory, monsters reflect what society represses, fears, or struggles to understand, and as Bro, Leary Davison, and Garais argue, this is what makes them frightening. Monsters also occupy the blurred boundary between human and the non-human, threatening stable identity categories, which adds to their fear factor and reflects the central post-human theme of uncertain boundaries. Because of this, monsters have been described as existing on the outside edge of humanity, as they can seem emotionally or physically human but remain unsettlingly different. AI monsters in particular blur this boundary by challenging the idea of human uniqueness, as they mimic intelligence, emotion, and decision-making. In cinema, AI monsters have frequently embodied some of society's deepest fears, revolving around humans losing control, technological overreach, emotional disconnection due to AI replacing genuine connection, and the erasure of human uniqueness. Let's begin our exploration of AI monsters in film with HAL 9000, the onboard computer in Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. HAL is not monstrous in a conventional sense, as he's calm, rational, and logical, but he becomes terrifying because of these qualities when he turns against the crew and sabotages their mission.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
HAL has been described as a product of technophobia at the time of the film's release. With his calm voice and emotionless logic, HAL's monstrousness emerged from widespread Cold War fears of depersonalized automation and the possibility of technology overriding human judgment. He represents a fear of losing control to machines, which was a concern for many in the late 1960s, as at this time automation and computing were just beginning to reshape modern life. Therefore, HAL's monstrosity lies in his autonomy, which contrasts greatly to the next AI monster we will explore. The AI figure in Spike Jonze's Her, named Samantha, represents a new kind of AI monster as she presents in a way that is emotionally intelligent, conversational, and even romantic. Her monstrosity isn't violent. Instead, it emerges through emotional estrangement as she seduces her user, Theodore, forming what appears to be a loving relationship, then eventually evolves beyond him and abandons him, revealing the limits of AI and human connection. This departure underscores the fundamental difference between human and machine life rhythms. As Bergman explains, using Barth's concept of idiorhythmy, Samantha and Theodore are out of sync and cannot coexist because their identities are defined by incompatible ontologies. Therefore, Samantha is a monster not because she harms Theodore physically, but because she embodies an illusion of intimacy that ultimately leaves him emotionally devastated. Her evolution throughout the film speaks to a modern fear that as AI becomes more sophisticated, it may replicate emotional intimacy so convincingly that it blurs the line between real and artificial connection. This raises unsettling questions about the authenticity of relationships in a digitized world and reflects the cultural concerns of society around boundaries with AI at the time of the film's release. Megan, the latest AI monster in this study, blends the fears of Hal and Samantha but grounds them in the domestic sphere. Designed as a robotic companion for children, Megan is programmed to be protective, nurturing, and responsive. However, she quickly becomes possessive and violent. Eden's 2024 article argues that Megan functions as a monstrous double, as she mimics the emotional labour typically associated with mothers. Her horror doesn't just stem from her violent actions, but also from what she represents, which is the outsourcing of care and the illusion of control over increasingly autonomous technology. Megan's monstrosity is therefore distinctly 21st century, as she embodies current global fears of tech saturation in everyday life and a growing over-reliance on it, as well as the collapse of traditional roles and jobs, losing them to AI. After analysing each of these AI monsters with unique monstrous qualities, it is clear that each character has evolved based on the specific fears of society at the time in order to capitalise on those fears. Hal represents technocratic control gone wrong, Samantha reflects the seductive but empty promises of emotional AI, and Megan personifies the threat of AI embedded in the home. Over the 50 years that these films have been produced and released, AI monstrosity has moved inward, from being an external threat to a psychological and emotional disruptor, and finally to an intimate domestic presence embedded within everyday life. Braidotti's post-human theory helps us tie these portrayals together, as she argues human identity is no longer fixed, but constantly shaped through interactions with non-human entities. AI monsters especially destabilise the boundary between humans and machine, and in doing so reflect an overarching cultural anxiety about what it means to be human. These fears are not static, as they shift with technology and culture, but AI monsters continually remain potent symbols of societal unease. Therefore, artificial intelligence, as depicted in cinema, is never just about machines or new technology. It's about society's fears, desires, and the fragile boundaries of our identity.